We walk around believing there is a spotlight on us, right? We just assume everyone notices our mistakes, our bad hair days, or, that awkward thing we said at a party. But psychology proves the exact opposite is true. Everyone else is way too busy trapped in their own spotlight to even notice yours. So welcome to this explainer on the spotlighting effect. Basically, why nobody actually cares what you do. We're going to dive deep into this super common feeling that we're constantly being watched, judged, and scrutinized by some imaginary audience. Spoiler alert, fascinating psychological research completely takes this idea apart. Picture this, a lone spotlight shining down, but then it shrinks down into a massive crowd, and suddenly you realize everybody has their own individual, isolated light. It's a great visual, isn't it? It beautifully illustrates that sure, while you are absolutely the center of your own universe, you are definitely not the center of everyone else's. And yeah, the sense of isolation can totally breed social anxiety, but honestly, really understanding this concept is the key to incredible freedom. So this whole phenomenon actually has an official name. It was coined by psychologists Thomas Gilovich, Victoria Medvec, and Kenneth Savitsky, and it's called the spotlight effect. Basically, it's a cognitive bias. It happens because, well, we're human, and we naturally use ourselves as the central reference point for interpreting the entire world. From a neurological standpoint, our brains process self-related information so deeply that our own personal experiences just seem way louder and more obvious than they actually are to anyone observing us. To see how this plays out in pop culture, think about Steve Martin's character in the classic movie The Lonely Guy. He walks into this restaurant all by himself after a breakup, the maitre d' loudly announces his arrival, and suddenly, to him, it feels like literally all eyes in the room are judging him. We all tend to overinflate our social importance in exactly this way. We just assume our presence is front-page news to people who, quite frankly, are simply focused on themselves. Now, to actually prove this happens in real life, let's look at a landmark study from the year 2000 by Thomas Gilovich. The experiment was brilliantly simple, but oh man, it was highly effective at making someone feel totally conspicuous. Researchers asked college students to walk into a room full of their peers while wearing a highly embarrassing t-shirt. And for this specific group of college students at the time, the researchers figured out that a giant picture of the singer Barry Manilow was the absolute ultimate source of embarrassment. The really fascinating takeaway here is the massive gap between expectation and reality. These completely mortified students wearing the shirt predicted that about 46% of the room would be able to identify the face printed on their chest. But in reality, when the researchers tested the room, only 23% actually did. That means the audience these students constructed in their own heads was roughly twice as attentive as the actual audience in real life. I mean, think about that. So why exactly does this happen? Well, it brilliantly illustrates a psychological concept called anchoring and adjustment. Let's say you spill coffee on your shirt. You start with your own heightened feelings of panic and embarrassment as an anchor. Logically, you know others aren't as hyper-focused on it as you are, so you try to adjust your expectations downward. But, and this is the absolute key here, we simply fail to adjust enough. We forget to account for the simple fact that other people have their own distractions, their own thoughts, and, their own private worries. Now, this doesn't just apply to physical things like a spilled coffee or an embarrassing shirt. We can actually contrast the spotlight effect with its close cousin, the illusion of transparency. So while the spotlight effect is all about overestimating the visibility of your outwardly obvious actions, the illusion of transparency is our tendency to overestimate how much of our internal mental state is leaking out for the rest of the world to see. You have probably experienced this firsthand during public speaking. When you're up on stage, you might feel like your intense anxiety, your racing heart, and your sweaty palms are just blatantly obvious to everyone in the crowd. And this false belief, it causes you to overcompensate, which triggers this massive stress feedback loop. But here's the crazy part. Studies show that when the audience is surveyed afterward, the speaker's internal panic is rarely, if ever, actually noticed by the crowd. And listen, this isn't just about high-stakes moments like stage fright. Dr. Marianne LaFrance's Yale study proved that this egocentric bias impacts us on a totally mundane level. Think about having a literal bad hair day. Her research showed that simply perceiving you are having a bad hair day actually causes you to doubt your capabilities, feel less smart, and even invent imaginary personal character flaws. Basically, a bad hair day legitimately lowers your performance self-esteem, all because you mistakenly think everyone else is evaluating you. We make these bad days so much worse because of how we interpret the people around us. Our socially anxious brains absolutely hate a vacuum. So if someone gives us a neutral facial expression or if there's a little delay in a conversation, our brain immediately fills that informational gap with a self-focused explanation. We end up misreading their silence as harsh judgment about our mistake or our bad hair, when in reality, their neutrality usually just means they aren't thinking about us at all. Okay, so the absolutely crucial point here is how this all translates to our modern digital lives. Social media essentially supercharges the spotlight effect. It amplifies our anxiety by making us feel continually judged by a vast, imaginary audience every single time we post. We constantly wonder if people are judging our photos or analyzing why we don't have enough followers, right? It's exhausting. In fact, clinical research shows that self-focused attention directly maintains social anxiety. People who are anxious online end up hyper-focusing on themselves to detect social threats. And when they do this while simultaneously looking at the idealized picture-perfect content of influencers, well, it inevitably leads to a lowered sense of social rank, a massive drop in self-esteem, and a real increase in negative emotions. But hey, here is the really good news, and exactly how we can start to break free from this trap. In a follow-up to that Barry Manilow t-shirt study, researchers changed one simple variable. Instead of sending the embarrassed students into the room immediately, they made them wait in a hallway for 15 minutes. This gave them time to habituate, to basically get used to wearing the shirt. And because they were less consumed by the shirt themselves, they drastically lowered their estimates of who would notice it inside. So time and just getting used to your own perceived flaws physically dims the spotlight. And honestly, simply knowing about this bias is kind of the ultimate cure. In another study by Kenneth Savitsky and Thomas Gilovich, they took public speakers and simply informed them about the illusion of transparency beforehand. They literally just told them, hey, research proves your audience cannot see your nerves. And you know what? That single piece of information totally broke the anxiety cycle. The informed group performed with significantly less stress, and they were rated much higher by the observers. Talk about a life hack. This brilliantly illustrates the core truth we've been unpacking today, perfectly summarized by psychologist Dr. David Dunning. He said, and I love this, we are the center of our own experience, but not the center of everyone else's. The discomfort you feel in social situations doesn't come from actually being observed and judged by others. It comes entirely from the false, egocentric belief that you are being observed. You are the center of your world, but they are the center of theirs. So, knowing that your typos, your bad hair days, your nervous sweating, and your awkward conversational moments are mostly invisible to a world that's completely preoccupied with standing in its own light, I want to leave you with this liberating question. If nobody is actually watching you, what will you dare to do today? Seriously, use this knowledge to step out of your spotlight and into your actual life.